Hello again, Odyssey families. This is Josh the Behaviorist, and we're going to be doing sort of an overview video. This is going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones. This is going to be sort of an overview of some of the things that you can, some of the considerations of home from distance learning, and sort of just some thoughts, and I think sort of putting together a bunch of the different topics that we've already discussed on these videos and sort of putting it into sort of daily life and what it might look like. So let's get into it, and there's a lot of depth we'll get into, so let's just get started. So the title of this one is Overview of Strategies and Considerations from during Distance Learning. There we go. Some of this information I actually found, there was a handout, or a pretty nice document that the Illinois State Board of Education, the Special Education Services Department put out. It was titled Remote Learning for Students with Significant Intellectual or Multiple Disabilities. They put it out in April 2020, and with Illinois State coming back on campus, I think they've returned for the most part on campus to away from distance learning. I can't find this. I have the original document, but now I can't find a link to it. So I would have shared a link to it, but I can't. So this is what it's called. If you folks want it, contact your teacher and I can send a link to you guys. So one of the things to consider, and I've talked to many parents and during IEP meetings, is that there's a lack of social engagement, especially, and I understand that as a parent as well, with our students working from at a distance learning situation. They don't have that social engagement, especially for students with ASD. There's already a social deficit there. That's one of the main hallmarks of ASD. Is a social deficit, a social breakdown. So there's not that engagement that you would normally get. Even having the people in your home, if you're isolating or quarantining or wherever you are, where you're isolated and there's a smaller group, that group, when you don't have a social deficit, can actually be a beneficial group, and you can find different relationships within a smaller group. With students with ASD, a lot of times our students don't have a lot of extracurricular activities they go to. Some do, but again, with COVID, with all of the social distancing, all of the rules that are in place, it's much more difficult to get that social engagement. So one thing to consider is that I know the Zoom meetings, they might be difficult, but they are important for our students to get that social engagement. And I have to say, when I've been able to see almost every class this month. I've been able to see every single class on campus, except maybe 2. I need to check my notes on that. But even seeing some of our students is to me rewarding, because I actually see all of our students after so long. But it's also important for them to see it. I think that's the thing that's most, I don't know if I want to say it's most beneficial, but it's truly beneficial to our students to have that engagement with their peers. So then they come back, whenever we come back, they'll have that relationship, and they already have that relationship. There's quite a few students that have been in the same class with their peers for years, and have a good relationship with them. Is it the same relationship that you had with peers at the same age that you were? Probably not, but that is, it's still no less important. So, attending those Zoom meetings, not requiring much of anything. And I know there's a whole nother video that I made about that, about, low impact, low demands during Zoom meetings. But even just having that little time, I know I've talked to one of our other teachers and talking about the one-to-one meetings with our teacher preferred students, having just that time. One of our students is having some trouble, and we're trying to get some more social activities for him. But in the meantime, I was talking to his teacher, and we're just going to have some time for them to be on camera together. She probably might not have anything for him to do. She might just be doing something else, but just having that time. He can choose to sit and do puzzles. He can kind of walk around, whatever, but just having her available is truly important. And I think that's going to be, hopefully for him, it's going to give him a little bit of that. Again, as we talk about our group at home, it's going to expand it out for him a little bit. And then again, when you're on those Zoom calls, again, there is some academic content there, but I think we're looking just at socialization and engagement, encourage engagement however it can be. So pictures, text, typing, sign language, gestures, iPad, tablet. I've seen all of those, except for PECs. I don't think I've seen those. during any of the class meetings. But everything else, the pointing, gesturing, even when there's something on screen, I've been in a couple of different classes where they have something on screen. The students are supposed to, pick the blue one, pick the green one. Which one do you think? And they're pointing, and we can actually see, for the most part, we can see left and right. If they're coming up and pointing, we can see which side their hand is on to make sure that they're engaging. It's again, lower level. It's not a great demand. It's not a high demand. We're not looking for, again, wherever your student is, we're not looking for the peak. We're just looking for some engagement. And I think it's important to consider that. This is another thing that structure your days, so routines. This is, I'll kind of summarize this, but it's important to maintain flexibility. So we can't expect home to be like school and school like home. And that's something that I know when I worked doing in-home programs, I used to run in-home programs, we can't make them the same. And so we don't expect you to, and I think it'd pretty much be impossible to. But what we can do is we can still at least sort of mimic the routine of the day. I can say as a parent, I've done the same thing, and I try to practice what I preach. And this one I can actually say I have. We get up at around the same time. It's not exactly the same time. It's a little later than normal. So if we normally would get up at 6:30 or 6, we're getting up at 7. On the dot though, we're getting up at 7 so we can get our day started. Get up, get dressed, brush teeth, comb hair, all that fun stuff, eat breakfast. And so we're not starting the day so much later. And I think, I believe this is addressed a little bit later too, but as we're, the Odyssey team is getting together, we're trying to get all of our ducks in a row to come back to campus. And I don't know what the timeline is at this moment. I don't know what the timeline is. And I don't think anyone really knows what the timeline is at this point. But the most important thing to consider is that when we call you and we reach out to you and say, okay, it's time. I know there's a healthy handful of students on campus, and these are the ones I know about, that are way off their normal schedule, their normal sleep schedule, just even that. And it's going to be a real challenge for the families. And I'm speaking to you guys, not for me. It's going to be a challenge in a different way for me when we get on campus, for all of our staff, but it's going to be challenging for you. Students that are getting up 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, a lot of times, we're on campus by 9. So, and I know with the drive times with the vans, I know students have to get up 6:30 and be on the vans and have that time to get ready, get dressed, eat, hopefully, use the bathroom, all that hygiene stuff. You might be on the vans at 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30. And many of our students aren't even putting their feet on the ground until well after that. That return to that old schedule is going to be tough for you, and it's going to be tough for our students and your children. So, putting in a routine that makes it, again, I don't expect you guys to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, get your student up and get them ready like they're going to be going to school at 7 o'clock, but something in between, and start shifting that. So one of the things, again, and I think this one is a really nice sentiment. This is actually, I think I took this from that Illinois document, but continue the get ready for school routine, such as dressing for school, eating breakfast, brushing teeth. I agree with all that one. The packing a backpack with school materials. I know that a few of our students have had a hard time with that. They want to get on the van. They want to come to school, and they will grab their backpack, and they're very upset that the van doesn't come and they don't get to go. So you have to pick and choose what is going to be appropriate for your student. That one, to me, is a non-starter. I think that you hold off on the backpack until we're actually going back, because that'll be a real signal to your student, we are going. Today we're going. Those other ones were dry runs. We're just kind of getting onto a routine. But this is the real one. This is the real deal. Let's see the next one. Okay, this is another one. Structure your days for school space. So when you are, when it is time to work on any of these lessons at home, you have to, not have to. I found it too as a parent doing distance learning, and I know I've talked to other parents and I've talked to other professionals and all of our teachers on campus, having a little space. And I think in here, I'm sure I know there's some place later too, but making sure we have a space that if we try to sit down on the couch and try to do lessons, it's a couch, it's soft, it's comfy. You're accustomed to being on the couch. Is the place you get to sit. You get to watch your iPad, you get to watch games, you get to kind of fool around. It's not school time. It's not educational time. So having like a spot, I can say right now, you know, when my office is my dining room table. When I'm working here, when I'm on campus, I have that space, but when I'm here, it's my dining room table. I'm not nowhere near my TV. There's not a lot of distractions. There are some, but I try to limit it the same way. For my own child, she has a spot, she has a desk, and that's where her space is. That's where all of her materials are. That's a little bit different. You know, different students are going to be able to manage that different ways. But if you think about it, that having even just a corner of the table, that this is the spot that when we sit down, this is the work time. It's the same thing as when we're in the classroom. We don't follow our students around and just do lessons everywhere. They have a little workstation for the most part. Some of our classrooms are a little more flexible and they have more flexible workstations. But when you're in the classroom, when you sit down at this desk, you know that this is the time that you need to pay attention. We're going to be putting some materials in front of you. You're going to be working for it. We're going to do the first then cards, all that stuff. It sets them up instead of you trying to chase them around. And that's sort of, again, when we talk about structuring your days, I would never expect a family to be able to create a classroom in their home. That's just not doable. I mean, maybe there's like the 1% of folks that can do that. But otherwise, if you could just find a spot. So what they say on here is set up a school space that resembles the school environment. So if you have visual schedules, you have all of your stuff there, your pictures, if you have core boards, pick your PECs, bright or dim lighting, depending on the student, certain kind of seating, again, depends on the student. Softer thing, I love soft chairs and things, but when I'm working, I need to have the high back. I have my like office chair in here. Task baskets and bins. Make sure that you're gathering all that stuff before. I know it's a challenge for us in the classrooms too. Sometimes it's time for lessons and our staff are kind of, you know, realizing, oh, we're going to be working on letters and I don't have all the letters. Make sure you gather all that stuff ahead of time. So when you do bring your student to that spot, you're not reaching over and asking someone else, hey, can you grab that? Oh, I don't have this. Make sure you got all that stuff before you bring them over. So when they sit down, you can kind of plow through it real quick. It's going to be it'll be less downtime, less struggling. It'll be less stress on you because you know you have the materials there. Task and basket, sensory items. So having those sensory things, that's something, again, when, you know, I know that our OT, our occupational therapy team, is available for consult. Doing all those, if you have a sensory diet or any kind of sensory occupational therapy recommendations about what to calm your student down, do all that stuff before you get to that space. Reward system. So if you have the star charts, if you have your what am I working for charts, I should have gathered my own materials. It's around the corner. I can't get it. Having all that stuff ready for you first, then depending on what you guys have and where your student's working at. They say a desktop. That doesn't really work for most of our students. Most of our students are working kind of at a table. It's kind of a multi-use table and similar items. So if there's something that you want, that you know that your student's been working on in class, I know, just ask your teachers and they can make an extra copy for you. The schedule, this kind of goes back to that. Let's see, I want to make sure I'm kind of hitting the right notes. I might have already talked about some of this stuff, kind of getting ahead of myself. So what they're saying too, that's the third bullet point. If they usually work at a desk during math, it might be helpful to work, you know, have the same expectations as home. It really is going to depend on your student. I'd try to give you recommendations that are going to fit for every student, but it's so different because we do have that spread from, you know, 5-year-old to 22-year-old students, and they're working on very different things. But, you know, talk to your teacher and say, you know, ask them, hey, I'm working on this lesson. What does that normally look like? And I'm sure that our teachers would love to have like a one-on-one, to have maybe a phone conversation, voicemail, email, whatever, however we can help you out, a Zoom call, to chat about it and sort of show how we might do a lesson. So please reach out for that. I think the top one is the thing that I would look at is if you have a visual schedule, having sort of the same routine, maybe, you know, I would say most of our classrooms, upon arrival, most students, they have them go to the bathroom. They do some sensory, if they have OT services, or just a little activity, some sort of physical activity. Some classrooms go straight into lessons and table time. Some, because of arrival times, they might do lessons for a few minutes until everyone arrives, and then they do morning meeting, which is the calendar, the weather, days of the week, maybe a couple songs, mimicking that sort of routine, and then they go on to other stuff. Mimicking that kind of routine where, hey, you could start with, if your teacher has uploaded morning meetings, you could start with a morning meeting. Then maybe do a really quick lesson and then take a break. Because that's kind of what we end up doing. We end up we do lessons, we have a little bit of a break, then we have another lesson, little break, and you rinse, lather, repeat. It depends on what the lesson is. Sometimes it's morning meetings, sometimes it's bathroom, sometimes it's hygiene, sometimes it's going on walks. Sometimes it's other therapies like OT and speech. But sort of making that routine similar. And again, I cannot stress this enough. We don't expect you to be able to do it from our normal hours, from 9 to 2 or 9 to 3. But if you can work on maybe a half an hour of a little routine, but like a micro routine, that is maybe a little seated table lesson. Maybe you talk about the weather, sing a song, maybe do some stretching. I know some of our classrooms do other stretching, kind of a PE, and then you move on. You take a break. Then you come back to it a little bit later. But making that, and again, like number 2, creating a visual schedule that sort of mimics kind of how school goes. Timers, clocks, all that stuff, depending on your student. Make sure you take advantage of those. And as I said, I just said that, but don't forget to build in activities like lunch, recess, sensory or movement breaks, art, music time. And just, with that recess, chill out time. No demands. Just, hey, you want to just kind of do whatever you want to do. It's your time. You get to you've earned it, especially if they've finished an activity. Okay, so this is kind of what I just said. I'm kind of hopping around on myself, but the home environments can be distracting. There's all, normally home is your relaxation spot. It's where you should feel comfortable. It's where you shouldn't have a lot of demand. I mean, you're gonna have life demands, hygiene, eating, cleaning, things like that. But there's always going to be, this is the good example of a cozy couch, smells from the, kitchen, people, moving around, pets are always around. You probably need to chunk things out, make them shorter. You can't expect them to stay on task for 5 hours at home. It's not going to work. It would be great if it could, but it's probably not. So they said on this example, 15-minute reading activity may need to be divided into 3 segments at home. So instead of expecting, again, we're expecting 6 hours, we're not expecting 6 hours. If you guys can get 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, and slowly spread that out, and slowly increase that time over weeks or months. Let's see, so if activities need to be broken up into shorter segments or spread over multiple days, it may benefit the student to review the last session's activity or content. That's always a good thing, sort of a priming. I think we have a video on that. About priming is one of those things, is you prepare them for the activity. That might be reviewing what we did yesterday. If you're doing calendar, you could say, well, we always do this in class. Yesterday, I'm filming this, I'm gonna be posting this on a Monday. Yesterday was Sunday. Today is Monday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. We always do that. So if it's Wednesday, we talk about yesterday was Tuesday, today is Wednesday, tomorrow is Thursday. Sort of doing that little review. The weather's been a little bit iffy, so a little cooler recently. But it hasn't been raining, so it'd be great if you could say yesterday was raining, today it's sunny, or today it's sunny, or today is raining and tomorrow, yesterday is not. Those are always good for differences. It's been kind of sunny, so there's not a lot of variation there just yet as we get into fall and winter. Social story, yeah, I mean, I've kind of repeated a bunch of this stuff. Again, I always say, if you have questions, just talk to your teacher, reach out. They're in contact with me all the time. We're in meetings all the time. So please, just if you have questions about any of this stuff, please reach out. Communication, I modified this. They had their, the Illinois form, they had a little bit different, but encourage communication by offering the lowest effort method of communication. And what that means is, that kind of sounds a little odd, but make it easy. That's, if you make it too hard for them to communicate, they're not going to communicate. So if your student, and I think that's where I said the next one, if you're going to get more communication when it's easier for your student. A lot of our students, because we have a lot of nonverbal students on campus, and it's a challenge to get that communication out. Some of them so amazing, fluent on their iPads or their PECs or their sign or gestures. They're great. They're really good. But when you're, especially you're raising the bar in asking them to perform or complete academic activities, that's a higher level demand. And you want to make sure that you're giving them, I would say kind of in a way, you're giving them an out. So even if your client or your student is communicating in 2 or 3 word phrases, and then they can do it, but that's a challenge for them. If they're asking for a break with 1 word, or if they have a PEX icon or something else, I would honor that, because I'd much rather, again, and hopefully you all are in the same boat as me, I'd much rather have that communication and not have that behavior escalation. So the easier you can make that communication, because again, I soapbox here, all behavior is communication. I'm not 100% on that, maybe 99.5, but in my field, that's sort of where I have to go, is when I have to look at behavior as communication. And that's a lot of BCBAs and behavior analysts look at it. So I'd much rather have our student communicate by saying, I want a break, or I don't want to do this, or help, or no more, all done. I'd rather have them do that than engage in those behaviors that we don't want to see. Those tantrums, those screaming, crying, yelling, self-injurious, non-compliance, dropping, all that stuff, all that wonderful stuff. I'd much rather see the communication, and making sure the communication is, I don't want to say as low effort as possible, but if you can, bring it lower to make it easier. Because again, if you want to look at behaviors like water, it's going to go to the easiest space. Water is going to travel with the least resistance. It's going to go and find the easiest path. Well, that's what we want to give them. We want to give them the easiest path to communicate their needs, their wants, their desires, rather than going to what should be a higher effort. A tantrum takes a lot more effort than just pointing to a card that says, I'm all done. So we want to make sure we do that. So if PEX is difficult, core board, so it's, or a choice board, many of our students use them. It's a static. I wish I had one. I keep on wanting to ask for one so I can print one out. It's just a bunch of icons. A lot of our students are familiar with them, but it's all the high usage icons. I want, all done, help, more, yes, no, all of those things. And all the student has to do is point to them. Having that, if PEX is hard, or Proloquo isn't working, if your tablet's not working, or vocals are really hard, you can go ahead and just do those core boards. Do something, again, lower effort, lower requirement there. Choice board is difficult. Offer just 2 items. I'm on a really small screen there, but just even, I have lots of pens. But if you can't get that vocal, you can't get, and it's just difficult, just offer 2 and accept whichever one they reach for. Oh, you want the orange one. Accept that, build up on it. Because if they realize that you're taking that and they're able to communicate that way, then again, you're going to avoid a lot of those behaviors, hopefully. Opportunities during everyday activities. And I think this is something that this is near and dear to my heart. Pivotal response training, I've done it for years, and it's a really good, a great method of naturalistic teaching. I know I did a naturalistic teaching video, so if you want to know more about that, look at the channel. But looking at everyday opportunities. So again, I know that, I don't know every student's IEP goals, but I know we're working on counting, sorting, identifying sight words, matching vocabulary, measuring, discussing cause and effect, time concepts, all those things, sensory experiences. You can do many of those, most of them, during everyday activities: cooking, baking, preparing meals, putting away groceries, clothes, or dishes, yard work, maybe opportunities to work on those things. You can, for counting, it can be setting the table. I don't set the table at our house. We don't really set the table, but you could if you wanted to. I think I talked about this in the naturalistic teaching one, but there's a lot of different ways that you can take those little opportunities and make it a little bit of a learning opportunity. And it's also nice. I think there's many of our students that really, they want to do things. They want to be, I don't want to say they want to be helpful, but they want to learn, they want to participate. And I know as a parent and as, working in the ABA field for so long, there's a lot of times that we, as a parent and as working in the field, there's times that we want to do things quicker because we don't want to take that extra effort, because we know, oh my gosh, if I have them clean it, if I have my student clean it, it's not going to get clean and I'm just going to have to do it again anyway. Well, you're going to do it anyway. So might as well just give them the opportunity to clean it. And you know you're going to go past and go back and, you know, if it's wiping off a table or wiping off something or sweeping things up, you know you're going to have to do it again. But taking that extra couple minutes and allowing the student to try it out, and do their own attempt at it, it's going to give you a couple different things. One, they're going to be engaged. Two, you're going to be able to identify where they need help, because they might shock you by doing something that you're not prepared for them to do. And it's also going to give you a way to sort of, then you can in the future think, okay, well, I know they can do this now. So now the next time, you know where, rather than just saying, no, I'm just not going to give them opportunity, you're able to go to the next step and say, okay, I know they can, I'm just using counter because I can see my kitchen right now, wiping the counter down. They're really good at wiping really close to the edge, but they don't reach out and do the back of the counter, the edge of the counter. Then that's where you give help. So rather than, you know, I know as a parent and you know, being in the field, I know sometimes you just want to get through it, but, you know, take advantage of those opportunities. Putting groceries away, I wouldn't give them anything in glass. You know, I wouldn't give our students in glass, but give them, you know, a loaf of bread. Be pretty hard to, I mean, I guess there's ways that you can mess up a loaf of bread, but pick your battles. Pick your things. Canned goods, depending on your student, might be a good option. So it really depends on the student, but teaching those little things and taking advantage of that. The hygiene routines, again, too, are going to be great for all of those little daily activities, for naturalistic teaching opportunities, especially because many of our students, I would say most of our students, have a hygiene goal, especially the older folks. Older students have hygiene goals because it's part of their transition. We want them to be independent as they you know, transition to adulthood. So additional resources, if you want to think about this, we have our speech therapy, occupational therapy, and I'm going to skip over that one and come back to it, but teacher, principal, director, me, we're all here, and remember to reach out to us. We're here to support you. The other one is in-home ABA therapy. And I know a lot of our students have in-home therapy. Please take advantage of them. You know, I'm making these videos from miles away from campus and from all of our students. So I don't get that time. I don't get to see what your daily life looks like. Those in-home ABA services, those providers are going to be able to observe your home and be able to give you pointers and how to structure, you know, hopefully they're not going to try to make this home look like school, but they're going to look at it and hopefully look at the structures that are already in place, the routines you guys already have in your household, and hopefully just kind of shine it up a little bit. You know, burn off a couple edges and sort of just polish it, and maybe just put in a little visual schedule or a couple little different visuals instead of me trying. You know, it's difficult for me at a distance. And it's difficult for our teachers and our OT and our speech to do it from a distance. It's always better. I would say it's always better to be in person, because I can look at things and I can observe things that you might not think to share, that might be the linchpin that I identify is the thing that's going to help you the most, but it's something that you don't observe. But that in-home ABA provider, they're going to be there. They'll be there and they'll be able to see all those different things that you can, that are available to us, and all those different ways to polish the structures that you already have. You know, every family has a slightly different, every family has a different, I don't want to say slightly different, every family has different routines, different expectations, different ways you communicate, different ways your household runs. You know, some people are morning people, some people are afternoon people, some people are nighttime people. All of those little things, and making sure that hopefully they can tweak things a little bit. So please, you know, if you don't have in-home, I would recommend it, just in general, especially when we're working at distance and we don't know what the future holds and how long are we going to be on distance and how long until we're actually back to what we all consider normal. So please, you know, if you've had in-home ABA therapy in the past, you might want to reconsider it and reach out and see. I know a lot of parents too, I've worked with over the years. It's nice to kind of come back. I know one insurance provider that I used to work with, they called them phases of intervention or cycles of intervention. They used to talk about it where, you know, we would we'd work with a family, they get to a good spot, we'd fade out. And then a couple of years down the line, things change, puberty, just household changes, skill changes, maybe behaviors kind of change. And then we come back in and you get a little bit more of a primer. So I know so many of our parents, I'm speaking to you guys, but so many of our families have decades of experience helping their students. So, but you're not on an island. And it's right now we all kind of have to be forced to be on the island. So please, reach out to if it's their insurance, through the regional center, however you can get ABA therapy, and really take advantage of it. And even if it is a lower level than, maybe you used to do one of those 40-hour-week programs, it might not be that. It might be something a little bit different. But having that sounding board and having that third party, outside observer to observe your household and hopefully just give you some pointers and some, help you build the structure. Again, I can say all these things, but I'm doing it from my living room, my dining room. So please just, really consider that. I think as far as everything else, again, speech therapy, occupational therapy, they're all available too. I know we're in constant contact, your teacher, and then the principal and director. I know that they are both more than willing to chat with you if you have concerns, especially as we're transitioning back to campus, whenever that is. Please reach out to them. I think there might be one more slide. That's it, actually. So as always, I'm going to go back, so at least there's something on the screen. As always, reach out. I mean, I just spoke about this for 5 minutes, but reach out to your team. Please contact your teachers, ask questions, put us on the spot. And I guess until next time, and if you have any other topics, please contact your teacher and let us know, and we can make another video. I have more, but we'll keep going. So until next time, thanks.